Chaim Potok's novel The Chosen explores the friendship between Jewish Reuben Malta and Hasidic Danny Sanders. In Brooklyn during World War II, Danny hits Reuben with a baseball, giving him a concussion. Reuben undergoes an operation to remove a piece of glass from his eye. In the hospital, he meets former boxer Tony Savo and Billy Merritt, a young boy blinded in a car accident. Danny visits Reuben and confides that his father expects him to become a rabbi, though he wants to be a psychologist. He also explains that his father disapproves of Epicureanism, Jews who are not extremely orthodox, such as Reuben. Reuben's father, David Malter, urges Reuben to become friends with Danny because the Talmud, the book of Jewish holy law, says the two things one should acquire in life are a teacher and a close friend. When Danny calls again, the boys talk about religion and reading. Danny regularly visits the library to read books recommended to him by an old man who turns out to be Reuben's father. Danny explains that his father is a Sadiq, a Jewish spiritual leader, and that after his father dies, he will be obliged to become Sadiq too, for if the son doesn't take the father's place, the dynasty falls apart. Danny comments on the irony of being forced to become a rabbi, while Reuben freely chooses the same fate. Reuben's eyes is healing, and his father arrives at the hospital that afternoon to take him home in time for Sabbath. When Reuben returns home, everything seems sharper and clear to him, as if he were seeing the world around him for the first time. Rav Malter narrates a brief history of Hasidism so Reuben can understand Danny's background. Reb Saunders, Danny's father, is a great Talmudist and a great Sadiq with a reputation for brilliance and compassion. Danny reminds Reuben's father of a brilliant scholar who rebelled against the traditions of Hasidism. Danny's grandfather was a well-known Hasidic rabbi in Russia. Danny's father inherited the position of Sadiq and led his Jewish community from Russia to America after World War I. Reuben meets Reb Saunders at his synagogue, and after he notes a mistake in Reb Saunders' gematria, the Jewish theory that each letter of the Hebrew alphabet corresponds with a number, Reb Saunders gives his approval to the boys' friendship. Danny and Reuben both plan to attend the Samson Raphael Hirsch Seminary before becoming ordained rabbis. Reuben meets Danny at the library after school. After becoming disturbed by reading negative views about Hasidism, Danny begins studying Sigmund Freud's books. Rav Malter worries about Reb Saunders' reaction to Danny's reading, but realizes that Reb Saunders cannot stop it. Reuben visits Danny on Sabbath afternoon and they review the Talmud with Reb Saunders. When Danny leaves the room, Reb Saunders demands that Reuben tell him about Danny's reading. He then asks Reuben to promise that he and his father will be a good influence on Danny. Danny mentions that he and his father don't talk anymore, except when he study Talmud. Reuben's eye heals and he studies for his final exams. When he calls the Merritt household, he learns that Billy Merritt's operation was unsuccessful and he is severely depressed by the news. Danny and Reuben spend the summer talking, studying Talmud, and following the war news. Danny becomes increasingly disturbed by his study of Freud. When school begins, they met only on Sabbath afternoons. In April, President Roosevelt dies and the country mourns. When the war in Europe ends in May, everyone is horrified by news of the German concentration camps. While Reb Saunders believes they were the will of God, Rav Malter refuses to accept this viewpoint. Rav Malter suffers a heart attack, and until he recovers, Reuben lives with Dany'S family. Reb Saunders speaks to Dany only during their arguments over Talmud. Reuben's father insists that Palestine must become the Jewish homeland, an idea with which Reb Saunders violently disagrees. Dany comments that his father is suffering for the 6 million Jews who died. Though he doesn't understand the silence, Dany admires, respects, and trusts his father. However, he feels trapped by the expectation he must become Sadiq so as not to break the dynasty. The war ends in August, and in September, Dany and Reuben enter Hish College. Both are older and slightly more mature. Reuben has started shaving, and Dany is wearing eyeglasses. Dany becomes upset when he discovers he must study experimental psychology rather than psychoanalysis in college. After talking with his psychology professor, he learns Professor Appleman objects more to Freud's methodology than his conclusions. Rav Malter becomes increasingly involved with Zionist activities. Zionism is prevalent at the college, and tensions build between Hasidim, followers of Hasidism, and the revisionists who support the Irgun or Palestinian terrorists. Reuben joins a religious Zionist youth group. Dany joins none of the groups but sympathizes with the Zionists. After Rav Malter's speech at Zionist rally, Reb Saunders excommunicates the Malters from the Saunders family. Reuben's schoolwork deteriorates because of his anger towards Reb Saunders. The United Nations votes to create a Jewish state. As violence between Arabs and Jews escalates in Israel, the anti-Zionist tensions in schools cease. Reuben's father suffers a second heart attack. Reuben studies Talmud using the scientific method and explains a particularly difficult passage in class. Later, he explains his theory to Talmud teacher Rav Greshenson, who reverses his explanation but asks Reuben never to use his heretical method during class. Rav Malter recovers, and Reuben and Dany, forbidden to talk to one another, communicate with their eyes, nods, and hand gestures. The college students become reconciled to Israel after a graduate is killed in the fighting around Jerusalem. A year later, Reb Saunders allows the boys to resume their friendship. Dany and Reuben dominate their Talmud class. Dany tells Reuben he plans to obtain a doctorate in clinical psychology and will tell his father on the day he receives his smikah, rabbinic ordination. The last year of college begins. Dany realizes that you can listen to silence and learn from it. Sometimes it cries, and you can hear the pain of the world in it. When Dany's brother Levi becomes ill, Dany panics. Reuben believes Dany's fears relate to his worries about destroying the dynasty if he doesn't become Sadiq. But Levi recovers. Dany applies to Harvard, Berkeley, and Columbia for graduate study. Reb Saunders repeatedly asks Reuben to visit, and Rev Malter insists that he go. Reuben visits Dany's home on the first day of Passover, the festival of freedom. Reb Saunders has aged. When Reuben announces his plan to become a rabbi, Reb Saunders says he knows of Dany's plans and explains his long silence. He considered Dany's brilliance a curse because it overwhelmed his soul and eliminated the compassion he would need as Sadiq. He accepts Dany's decision to become a psychologist because Dany now has the soul of a Sadiq. He then speaks Dany's name and adds, "Today my Daniel is free." The Sadiqate is inherited by Levi. Reuben and Dany graduate from college. Dany and his father now speak to each other. When Rav Malter asks him whether he will raise his son in silence, Dany answers yes, if he cannot find another way.